Hello friends, welcome to the channel. Bob here. Welcome to another Shroud of the Avatar video. It's not really. I wondered if you thought it was for a minute though. all these Unity created MMORPGs look the same, don't they, unfortunately. This is not Shroud of the Avatar, although it kind of looks quite a bit like it. It's Embers Adrift, which is a game that a friend of the channel put me onto. Initially I thought I'd missed, and it's kind of like a bit of a hobby to go around playing indie developed MMORPGs, and I thought I'd missed this one, but I did a little bit of digging and I found out that I kind of hadn't missed it. I knew it in its previous incarnation. It's been I think there were some problems with the devs. I think it was a Kickstarter game, and the original devs were trying to do some stuff. It didn't work out, so I think the game failed essentially. Maybe not. Maybe you can correct me on that. But I think some people who were working on the game at the time kind of took it over, and the original devs left. That kind of is a bit of a red flag. I know. Well, I'll say that I've paid for the game, so you don't have to unless you really like the looks of it. I thought I paid for it so you can have a look at it essentially. Yeah, so that can be a bit of a red flag. The fact the game's already failed once, and it's been kind of re-released on Steam for sort of $50 or whatever it is. You know, it's, yeah, maybe long term that's not going to be a good thing, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm happy that I paid the money, and I got to have a look at it, and I'm enjoying it mostly. So yeah, I thought I'd give you a little kind of first impressions. So it's called Embers Adrift, indie developed MMO. They're going for like a hardcore, like old school feel, I guess. And this is the first kind of game, indie developed MMORPG that's claiming to be old school, like hardcore, that actually feels like, the combat anyway, kind of feels like EverQuest, like all of the other games, even if they're claiming to be old school, are really like DPS racing based combat systems, so like Project Gorgon, Shroud of the Avatar, those kind of games. This is the first one that's kind of got that slower EverQuest pace, and I really like it. I know it's maybe us old fools who like this kind of thing, but I'm enjoying like taking on like one or two mobs at a time and having to sit down and have a rest and stuff. Yeah, I guess you have to like EverQuest to like that kind of thing, but I'm kind of really enjoying it. The mobs are difficult as well, so you can only really deal with like one, maybe two mobs around your level, you know, before you're going to be struggling. I would say the leveling experience overall is kind of similar to EverQuest if you started again and you didn't twink yourself. The combat seems a little bit slower to me actually, the actual killing of the mobs, but sitting down and resting, waiting for your health and stamina is a bit quicker, so kind of balances itself out. I did have P99 open at the same time in the early levels, and I was kind of trying to just see how long it took to level and stuff, and it's quite similar. As I said, the combat time is longer, but the downtime is a bit less. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And as I said, it's got that pacing, that EverQuest combat pacing. And the mobs are difficult. You can't just go steaming in and whatnot and just pull a load and then burn them down. So that's really good. The mob difficulty I'm not so keen on. It's determined by these symbols here, which is chevrons, which is fine. But you've got three different flavours. You've got one chevron, which is a solo mob. Two chevrons, which is like a slightly harder, like a duo or trio mob. And then you've got three chevron, which is a group-based difficulty, and I liked it at first, but I come to the conclusion that I don't really think it's going to work very well long term, like for landscape mobs anyway. I can understand it in a dungeon, but I think the problem you're going to have is you're going to get, this is going to be a niche game, so what you're going to get is that the people who really want to play the game are going to play it initially when it comes out, and they're going to level, and then you're going to get new players coming in, but you're not going to get many, as I said. And that's not a criticism of the game, it's just the same with every niche MMORPG that I've played. So you're going to get new players coming in, and there's probably not going to be a huge amount of people for them to group with. So what you're going to find is that they're going to be maybe soloing through some content to get to a point where they can start grouping with people. but a lot of that content, because of the way the chevron thing works, is going to be like gated off from them. So there are mobs like this, like one chevron ones, where they are solo, and that's fine. But a lot of the camps you go to are either 2 or 3, or they're mixtures of 1, 2, and 3. So as a solo player, you know, wanting to go to some camps and trying to like level up, I think that's going to just make it unnecessarily harder. I don't get the chevron thing, to be honest. I understand that it's a way for them to differentiate between if you're in a group, solo, or a trio, or whatever. But just do that by level. You know, I don't get it. I would rather they made the mobs slightly harder and got rid of the chevron, so you know that if you go somewhere and the mobs are your level, you can do something. You haven't wasted your time running to a camp only to find out that they're all 2 and 3 chevrons. It's just, you know, do the difficulty by level is what I would like to see. It just keeps it simpler, and as a player, you know, you can go to an area or you can go somewhere and you can find something to do, particularly if you've got an hour, you know, you don't want to run somewhere, because bearing in mind you have to run everywhere in this game. It's that kind of hardcore. There's no teleporting or mounts or anything like that. So yeah, I would get rid of the chevrons. Maybe what I would do is have spread around maybe the odd elite or boss mob. Maybe in dungeons you can have different levels of mobs, elite, you know, boss, that kind of thing. But I don't think I've decided I'm not a massive fan of the chevron thing anyway, and I think basically if you go out, like later on down the line, 3 or 6 months, new players coming in who are going to have to solo to level up, potentially, you know, are just going to find that there's content gated off from them, and I don't see the point of that. I'd rather go, if I had to solo, I'd rather go to a camp where mobs were like blue or green to me, but they were all, I could pick them off and kill them all, and maybe work my way through the area, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I would lose that, but you know, your money may vary. We'll have to see what happens in the future. The chevrons also have a colour. I don't know if you noticed. I go and pick up another mob. I quite like the fact that you get different mob spawns at night. So at night these ember flies spawn, whereas during the day there are other mobs. Yeah, as you can see here, the chevron is white, so that's an even con solo mob. You get blues, which are lower level, blues and greens, and you get yellows and reds, which are higher level. Yeah, so it kind of follows the EverQuest formula, and that's yeah, and that's all good. And as I said, like the pace of the combat and the fact that I can go somewhere and find a camp for myself and sit there for a couple of levels. And then between fights, I can sit down to regenerate my health and stamina. I can go and grab a drink or something, or look at something on another screen. I'm quite enjoying that pacing of game, the way the game's paced itself out. So that has been a highlight, and I like the fact that the combat is of a similar style to EverQuest from a pacing point of view. That's really good. Unfortunately, the same can't be said from a tactical or strategical point of view. Now, there are 3 base classes, and so tank, DPS, and support, and each base class has 3 specializations. And from what I can see so far, those classes only have about 8 or so abilities between each. From what I can see, and I looked on the forums, and there was a list of abilities that each class had, and there was only 8 or 9ish or whatever. And so that means that the options that you've got to manipulate and control a fight and use tactics are very limited. The skills also, there's not a lot of crowd control. There is some crowd control, but there's only like 2 or 3 characters that have got a crowd control ability. So I am kind of wondering. I'm wondering about the interest and the tactical nuance of the combat. For me, at the moment, it's not really there. You've got, like, I pull a mob. If I get 2 or 3, there's not really much I can do. And I know that might be similar to playing certain classes in EverQuest, but none of the classes seem to have a real option. I think I saw one class that's got like a stun that seems to last a fair amount of time. So if you get a couple of mobs, you could stun one and stuff, but it hasn't got the expansive tactical toolbox that a lot of classes in EverQuest have got. It feels quite basic in that sense. It's mostly aggro, healing, DPS. So even though you've got the pace of the EverQuest combat, you haven't got anywhere near the tactical nuance, and the classes haven't got anywhere near toolboxes for you to have fun. So there aren't even any caster classes in the game, and there are certain things that kind of concern me a bit, and the fact that there's no casters is one of those things with regards to how far the development of the game's going to go. Now, I think they're going for a low magic thing from a lore point of view, but looking at the combat as it is, I do wonder if they're saying that was a lore choice, but maybe it was just maybe it was just a time resource choice. It could even possibly be, I don't want to be mean, but it could possibly also be an ability thing from the developers, because I looked at a forum post and the developers kind of introduced themselves, and there were some questions that were asked, but the one question that didn't seem to be asked, maybe I missed it, was what games you've worked on before. And I'm not sure if any of these guys have actually worked on an MMO before. Now, that's not a bad thing in and of itself. You know, we've all been burnt over the last few years with so-called experienced MMO developers coming back and creating a game and then mucking it up. And I quite like the idea of fans making games. I think you can get some really good ideas come out of that. And I think this game has got some of those good ideas. But the fact that the combat to me feels quite limited, and there's no magic, there's no taming, there's no pets, any of that kind of stuff. It does make me not just that, some other parts of the game as well. It does make me wonder how much experience the developers have actually got of creating an MMO, and maybe their limited resources, or because this is a small indie team, so let's not do them down too much. I'm sure they're doing what they can, but yeah, I do. There are certain things missing from the game, and certain things that have been implemented feel a bit janky, or a bit not amateurish maybe, or a bit placeholdery. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's more placeholdery than feeling amateurish or janky. But yeah, that's the only thing I'm a bit worried about, is what is their experience, and if they haven't got any, are some of the limitations that I'm seeing in the game so far because of that, or are they really kind of like lore decisions? I guess we won't know until the future. But I'm happy to. I paid for the game, and I was happy to give them money to, to see where it goes, because it's just like a bit of a hobby, really, like playing indie MMOs. It's something that I enjoy. I enjoy kind of flitting around them and seeing how they're getting on. So yeah, so the game, they did have a free weekend last weekend as like a stress test, but the game is, you do have to pay money for it, $50 plus whatever taxes, I think, probably. And I think they're heading for a subscription model as well, which again is something that may put people off. I don't mind subscriptions. Like, I'd quite like to pay. I mean, I don't mind paying like $10 a month or something to see like a continuous development of the game going. So that's not too much of a problem for me. But yeah, I'm finding the combat is well paced, but incredibly. I say incredibly. Let's not. I don't use too many superlatives, because it's probably not being fair. I'm currently finding the combat more simplistic than I'd hoped it was going to be, but maybe that will change in the future. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But the combat, if you're looking for that sort of pace of combat, you're coming to the right game, because it really does feel more like EverQuest than any game that's claiming to be EverQuest. Certainly for the indie MMOs that I've played. But the combat does lack a lot of tactical nuance. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. I'm not sure if it's working or not yet, but there are things like resistances and stuff. Damage, like percentage of. Oops, am I not? Oh, I wasn't locked on there. Like percentages of damage and stuff. If I show you up here on my character screen, so I've got percentage for hit, penetration, etc. Most of these don't seem to actually do anything. I don't have any bonus ones. One of the ones that made me think that maybe it's not working is that when I The class I'm playing is a warlord. It feels a bit like a bard actually, because I've got a couple of songs that heal my stamina and health. But when I use them, my health and stamina regen percentage doesn't go up at all, even though it is more because I've got the spells on. So I'm not sure if any of this back system stuff is working. Yeah, maybe someone else can. Maybe, you know, if you've been playing the game for a while, maybe you can fill me in on any of the mistakes I'm making or any of the queries that I've got. The actual game's also got a bit of a D&D flavour to it, so the way that your character kind of develops a little bit. Also in like your damage, so like your weapon is based on hit dice. So the stuff I'm using is like, I think it's 2d2 plus whatever. And then you get a bonus based on if you're using which is your auto attack damage, and then any skill damage skills you're using have got like a modifier to increase that. So there's also a little bit of a D&D flavour going on as well. This fight, as you can see, is taking quite a long time. Some of the fights do take quite a long time, but this is an even con. One barb mob. I'm not sure what you think of the combat. I mean, at the moment, it feels to me like I've kind of got quite a lot of my abilities that I'm going to get. So, yeah. There are some different classes, and some of the classes do have different flavour, and there are, as I said, there are a few that have got some crowd control, but it does feel quite simplistic. Yeah, so, but there's some back-end stuff going on as well, and the mobs also will do debuffs on you occasionally when they cast them or proc them or whatever it may be. They'll heal themselves as well and whatnot, so, yeah. But limited classes, limited abilities for each class, no casters or pet classes or tamers or any of that kind of stuff at the moment. You know, we'll have to see how we go. The look of the game is a weird one. When I first logged in, it was really funny because I literally thought I'd logged into Shroud of the Avatar, but that's just playing a game that's got, you know, that's just playing MMOs that are using the Unity engine to develop and buying the same graphics packs and things, I guess, and sound packs and that kind of thing. I guess you're going to get that, right? That's just how it goes. I do hope the game gets a style of its own, though, like later on. I hope it's not going to stay looking too much like... I'd like to see some a lot more original models and that kind of thing, and environments. The environments are not... Like the combat, the environments are not particularly diverse. Like, this is the third zone I've been to, and it looks the same as the other two. The second zone I went into, I got quite excited because it was almost like a swampy type thing at the beginning, but the swamp finishes up particularly, you know, really quickly into the zone, and it kind of resorts to these tree plains kind of areas. Yeah, there's no diversity in the areas or anything at the moment, which is also a bit disappointing. Yeah, and there's no weather effects or anything like that. I'd like to see some different biomes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, be aware that if you do want to try the game out and you pay the money, be aware that the server is currently also only available at weekends and on Wednesdays. So that's something to take in mind if you're looking to give it a go. It's got dungeons and stuff. I haven't been in any yet, but I've heard rumours of them, and what I'll try and do. I'm coming to the end of my play this weekend. I've been playing it all weekend actually. I'm level 9.5 roughly. Leveling's kind of EverQuest kind of pace as well. Yeah, as you can see here, that mob just used an ability that meant I couldn't use any of my skills for a few seconds. So yeah, that was that does happen. Yeah, so the server's only up at certain times at the moment, so be aware of that. But there are dungeons, which I'll try and venture into next week and show you those. Yeah, I would, to sum it up, I would kind of say that it's like it's good jank at the moment. You know, a lot of the systems and the implementations kind of feel either half finished or like placeholdery. Like this zone for example is quite a big zone bordered by mountains. It's like a big bowl, I guess, but a lot of them, like mob placements and the points of interest, like location placements and stuff, all feel a bit placeholdery. I'm still not sure if they are placeholdery or if they're just a group of amateur developers kind of just finding their feet, and maybe these things will improve over time, which I can appreciate, you know, if that's the case. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's janky fun. A lot of the systems need work, but there is a game here that you can play. I've been playing all weekend pretty much. I've leveled up to level 9.5. I've picked my specialisation, and I've been going around exploring and doing. It's got crafting as well, crafting and resource gathering. So you've got all that stuff going on. I've been doing a bit of that as well. I would say the only other thing I don't like is that I'm getting a bit fed up of games calling themselves sandboxes, and it seems to be a bit of a thing with all of these indie MMOs, Project Gorgon, Trinity Avatar and stuff. And I would say, like, at best, I would say that they're more pseudo MMOs rather than actual proper MMOs. I mean, this game, like like Sandbox, not an MMO. I guess it depends on what your definition of Sandbox is. For me, it's a game that pretty much lets you go in and do anything you want, essentially, and the tools are there for you to do whatever you want without restrictions, a bit like Worm Online, whereas most of these games calling themselves sandboxes do have restrictions. So this game, for example, has got gathering and crafting, but you can only have 2 out of the 6 skills for gathering and crafting. I don't understand that. I know that this game is kind of aiming for more of a social, like, group focused game. But I think if that's the case, if you're going to have these limitations, you can't really be a sandbox at the same time. And I don't really see how that works anyway, like having these limitations. I mean, if I understand it's done so that you've got 2 crafting skills, so if you need some materials, you'll buy it from someone else and all that kind of stuff. But the reality of what will probably happen is that people who want all the crafting stuff will have more accounts or just use alts, so they'll do it anyway. So I just don't see the point in limiting people, really. I would just let people do it all on the one character. This kind of stuff is quite grindy anyway, so you're only going to get a few people that are going to do everything. And if there's people that want to do everything, I would personally let them do it. And I think you get a bit closer to being more of a sandbox in that regard. But yeah, there are some limitations with regards to what you can do, like classes, for example. So you can't just be any of the classes and switch about or level them all up, as you can in Project Gorgon or Shroud Avatar, for example. It's much more class based. I guess, as I said, a bit more EverQuest and D&D. But yeah, just to sum up, because this video is probably going on for a bit longer than I was hoping. It's good fun. I'm having a lot of fun running around and exploring, and I enjoy the pace of combat. But there are some systems and mechanics that feel janky, and then there are some systems and mechanics that feel quite simplistic that need to be expanded upon. The one thing that I kind of had to reevaluate my opinion of the game, because I thought it was further along than it appears to be to me anyway. Maybe that's to do with the changeover of development team. I'm not sure. But it still feels quite a way away from being a kind of a finished release product. And maybe that's me. For some reason, I thought it was a game that was maybe a bit closer to being like a full proper release. But it doesn't feel like it to me. So maybe it's more me, and before I came into the game, I just reevaluated its situation incorrectly, or maybe the change of development team, as I said, has we've got some Northern Light stuff going on as well. And maybe that has affected. Maybe that's put the game back, or they've had to redo some stuff. I'm not sure, but anyway, I'm enjoying it for the most part. But I think there's a lot to bear in mind before you give it some money. I was happy to do it, to try it out, and I'm actually quite looking forward to playing it next weekend again when it's available, just so I can look in a dungeon and stuff. But yeah, just think about it first. Be careful. It's if you like what you've seen, and the fact that it's only available at weekends, you might get your time out of it. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on to see where it goes. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Hello. I thought I'd tag this on the end of the video, see if anyone's... Are you awake? Are you awake? Anyway, I thought I'd tag this on the end. I wanted to talk a little bit about the performance. The sun's just coming up, so I thought I'd show you the sun coming up. Just hitting the top of the mountains there, which is quite nice. There's the moon going down, bit of a lake down at the bottom there. Nice ruin over that side. I just wanted to talk about performance quickly. So I've it's been solid for me. Basically, I mean, I'm not sure what Shadow the Avatar was doing or has been doing, but similar engine, visually very similar, bigger zones, but it's been rock solid. No real network lag that I've come across. No visual lag. Now and again, the frame rate might drop a little bit depending on what's going on the screen or what direction I'm looking in sometimes. But other than that, it's been really, really good. I've had no performance issues at all. I mean, I'm playing in 4K. This is in 4K, although I'm downsampling it for you to 1080p. Yeah, and it's been running great. I thought I'd tag that on the end because I know that that's something that might concern some people. I'm running it on a 3090, but I'm running in 4K, so take all that into consideration. If you've got a lower graphics card, downscale it to 1080p, you can work out whether you're going to get a good performance or not. Yeah, I thought I would tag that in on the end. As you can see, it really, really does look like a big Shroud of the Avatar zone, doesn't it? I know that the developers are probably really annoyed at me keep making a comparison, but it really does, and I really do hope the game gets its own visual style at some point in the future. And I do hope that they look at this chevron thing, at least for the landscape stuff. Like, there's some nice ruins and towers and stuff around that I just can't hunt at because I'm not high enough level. And you might say, well, go and get in a group, but there aren't any groups at my level that I can see at the moment. And but why have it that way? Why have that limitation? I don't understand it. Just be a bit more sandboxy and let people attempt to do what they want to do. And then you'll have more happier customers, I would say. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.